my name is Jennifer. I work with GMG Envirosafe. I want to thank everyone for jumping on the call. I'm excited to talk to you all. And because of GMG's relationship with Kentucky Trucking Association, we're able to provide this complimentary training on how to navigate an OSHA inspection. And I know that OSHA and EPA is just super fun to talk about, but you're going to get a lot of industry insight and knowledge. So a little bit about GMG. We have been around since 1989. We've been the leader in EHS for the automotive repair industry. Currently, we're servicing over 6,000 facilities. So what exactly do we do? In short, what we do is become your compliance department. So our coordinators walk your facility on a quarterly basis, and they're ensuring that regulations are being met. They also support businesses with annual training, so right to know training, software, permitting assistance, and just policies and procedures, so written plans that protect both the business and your employees. So when you need us, we're there. So we help our clients navigate anything compliance related at a national, state, and all the way down to a local level. And over the years, we've helped our customers save thousands of dollars, prevent thousands of injuries by having this proactive approach. So who do we service? We service single operated locations. We service locations that have over 1,000 locations nationwide, but regardless, we are an extension of your business. So as far as what we're going to talk about today, just to give you an idea, we're going to talk about what prompts an inspection. So why is the inspector out there? What are they looking for? Then how can you prepare for an inspection? We'll also look at steps that you can take today to protect the business, and then look at what to do if an inspector comes out, and should there be a citation, knock on wood, how you're going to respond to that. And we're also going to look at some common citations for your industry. I love this part. It's my favorite part because you're likely going to walk out into your facility afterwards and see all these little errors that you can fix and mitigate your risk. So first, what prompts an inspection? First is going to be imminent danger. So this is before something bad happens. This would be after a large spill. It's also with industries that have a lot of hazards and chemicals like ours. And second, you're going to see this is after a fatality, after a catastrophe, after a death. They're just following up to see what went wrong. Next, this is a common one we all are familiar with, a complaint, a disgruntled employee. It could also be somebody in the community, if they're smelling something different. I have had that happen several times. And it could be a customer. So if a customer comes into your shop and they're just not familiar with the smells that we are familiar with on a daily basis, they may give OSHA a call or EPA a call. But regardless of who makes this complaint, it is required that they follow up. Next is going to be an emphasis program. So this could be on a specific area. It could be strictly around lifts. So if an inspector comes in, maybe they just want to look at your lift or just want to look at a certain piece or permit that they might be looking into. And then lastly, this would just be a program, like a routine visit. Some places literally say the OSHA inspector comes out annually, and it's likely because of some license or permit that they have. So here we have what prompts an inspection. So for our industry, ones I see a lot are having that annual training. So that right to know training, which is educating your employees on the hazards in the workplace. That's something that they definitely look into. Also fit testing, that is a big one. If you have anyone welding, anyone spraying paint, or around chemicals that is wearing a respirator, they're going to need to have that fit testing. A lot of places had 3M doing this years back. Hasn't been done for 5 or 6 years now, but we do that as well. And that does need to be done regardless. Another one I see is PPE. So not wearing safety glasses is a big one. And lastly, another one I see all the time is just not having secondary labels on chemicals and chemicals kind of sitting around. So creating an inspection policy. So the inspector shows up and they point something out, something's wrong. Just saying, I don't know, isn't a good example or an excuse. You basically just want to have a proactive approach, and this would look like having a 1 to 2 page document together. So a written policy that just explains what an employee should do if an inspector shows up when management isn't present. So if you have this policy in place, you restrict the inspector access to the building when you're not there. So you can have an escalation plan. If A manager isn't there, maybe they go to B manager. If no manager is present and an employee lets the inspector into the building and you have this written policy in place, anything that they see has to be thrown out. So GMG actually has a template that we can provide for you guys at no cost, typically a $500 benefit, but this is great to have in place so that you can protect the business. As far as the inspection and your employees' rights, employees really need to understand their rights. If an inspector comes in and they have questions for an employee, your employee needs to know that they're allowed to speak to them. You cannot retaliate against your employees. Your hours are not going to be docked. You're not in fear of losing your job, but you have the right to speak to that inspector. They also need to know that they can have you present, they can have you not present. Again, that's their right. But one thing that they really need to be aware of is if the inspector asks them a question, and let's say day one, Paul comes in, you're going through training, you tell him where he can access the safety data sheets, the SDS sheets, and he's made aware, you've told him probably 3 times now. The inspector asks Paul and he says, I don't know. That can be used as a basis for a citation. So believe it or not, outside of that, they can't have legal present. That's an extreme case, but that's all your employees need to know about their rights. As far as your inspection rights, you do have the right to refuse an inspection. You do not have to allow them access to the building. That's something you definitely want to keep in mind. But if you do, they're likely just going to go, have an administrative judge sign off, come back. They might come back with more people. They might be a little more hard on you, but you do have that right. Another thing I want to point out is that during this time frame, whenever they're coming through, if it's a really busy day, maybe you are short-staffed, maybe you have to go pick up your son from soccer, but that time just does not work. As long as you're respectful and you're communicating, hey, there's nothing going on, you can come back tomorrow, they'll usually be understanding in those circumstances. So when an inspector comes into the shop, the first thing you want to do, always be courteous. You want to get a copy of their credentials. So find out just that they are who they say they are. And then you want to make sure that you're getting them out of the customer eye, go to a conference room, sit down, and just ask questions and take notes. First thing you're going to want to ask is what's prompted this visit. So back to those questions of the level of importance. And once you've found out, let's say it's a complaint, you're allowed to ask for a copy of that complaint. It does not mean they'll necessarily give it to you, but you just want to be able to find out, what's going on, find out if they're going to be talking with employees, and ask what specific documents they want to see. You do not want to give them free rein to all your documents. So maybe they are just there to see a lift, and you take out all your documents, and it just opens you up to them seeing maybe some other gaps that you're not aware of. If they are there on an emphasis program, like the lifts I mentioned, you make sure that you are walking with them and only give them access to that while they're walking the facility as well. So the fun part, the walkthrough. So imagine you're about to walk into the shop and you're thinking, oh boy, what are they going to see? First thing first, because I've had this happen several times, make sure that you are putting on your safety glasses and offering them safety glasses if they don't have them. Sometimes if you do not, this has really changed the energy of the inspection, and it just changes the vibe. So once you're in the facility, you're going to want to walk with them, like I mentioned. Ask questions. If something looks blocked off from one view, not another, make sure you're taking pictures. Make sure that if they're taking a measurement, you're taking a measurement. If they do see something there that could be fixed while they're present, so it could be an eye wash station that needs changed out, it could be a razor blade on the ground, a label that needs put on, definitely take care of that while they're present. And also, if you don't have an answer to something, just let them know that you'll try to get them an answer by the time they leave. EPA record keeping, you definitely want to have these organized and on hand. Some things that they'd look for if they come in are 609 certifications, VOC logs, but these logs, lab reports, chemical inventory records, you want to keep them organized so that if somebody from EPA comes in, these are easily accessible. As far as OSHA record keeping, you will need to keep records of OSHA documents as well, and they're going to look for things like your OSHA 300, which you need to have 5 years of. They're going to want to see your OSHA 300A, which is a record of that report. They're also going to want to see your safety data sheets, lift inspections, proof of fire extinguishers being serviced, eye wash station logs, things of that nature. As far as training programs, to overwhelm you even more, they're going to want to see documentation that you've provided the employees on this annual training I've already mentioned. So day one, when the employee comes in, first thing you want to do is complete that educational training, have documentation that this training took place. And also note this annual right to know training is annual and does need to be repeated on an annual basis. So how does GMG help here? One thing that we do is provide a docu-system. Things that you want to have in place are written programs, programs that tell you, what you're going to want to do in the event of a tornado, in the event of a spill, in the event of a fire. It just gives you emergency action plans and tells you how to navigate situations. And then there's also a folder system, similar to how I was mentioning how to keep record keeping, that house, different hazardous waste logs, different employee documentation for you to access. So you've already walked the facility and you don't want them to leave without sitting down with them. You've provided them all the documentation, and what you want to do at this point is just go back, sit down in that meeting room that you originally sat down in, and you're going to ask for a list of hazards, potential citations that they saw, just get some feedback on issues they saw, and in doing so, remember to be respectful and understand they're just there doing their job. They're not trying to offend you, but you do want to take notes on this conversation. Keep those notes, hold on to them, because they have 6 months to issue a citation. You might think everything went great and Bob, the OSHA inspector, was super friendly and you bonded over, basketball and dogs, and turns out he goes back, talks to his supervisor. That supervisor has the ultimate decision. So again, hang on to those notes. As far as citations, these are sent certified mail, so obviously they know that you've received the citation. So make sure that you be keeping an eye out for your mail. Don't let it pile up on your desk or anything. But there's something that you also can't sit on, because you only have 15 days to respond to a citation. The details of what they're citing you for are going to be lined out, as well as the fine. Penalties get very pricey. They're established by shop history. They're established by whether this is a repeat offense. So financially, for a first offense, that can be up to $16,000 for these repeat offenses I'm mentioning. So for instance, they come in, you don't have a fire extinguisher mounted 3.5 to 5 feet above the ground, or maybe you don't have a yellow sign above it pointing down. You can have that happen. They come back a year later, it happens again. That's going to be a multiple of 10. So if it was a $16,000 fine initially, then you'd be looking at a $160,000 citation. Also note, if they give you a time frame that you have to fix something, they can actually fine you another $16,000 per day while that's getting fixed. And the last thing I want to mention on this page is OSHA got rid of a policy that they called grouping. It used to be where if, let's say, none of the employees had safety glasses on, then you just get one citation. But now if you have 5 employees that don't have safety glasses on, that would be 5 citations. As far as the response to the citation, so what you would be looking at here is within that 15-day working period that you have to decide what you're going to do. Are you just going to pay it, fix the problem? Do you need to send documentation? In some cases, it could be that simple correction, and you pay it. You could disagree with what they're citing you for, and you can request an informal settlement conference, again in that 15-day time frame. If a settlement can't be reached and you believe the citation is not valid, you can always file a notice of contest and proceed to court. Keep in mind this process can be very pricey for both you and OSHA. So whenever possible, the goal is to resolve, obviously try to mediate it, and that is what GMG helps with. That's when people always call us. It happens all the time, and people are very overwhelmed. Their stress level is insane. They are so scared that they're going to have to pay this and have this on their record. So that's when people call us. We help mitigate the risk, potentially take it away, and put a program in place to assist. So this is my favorite part, the common workplace violations. Here is an example that's really kind of silly, because if you have acetylene and oxygen next to each other on a tank, they're allowed to be next to each other. However, if they're not being used, they actually need to be stored 20 feet apart from each other. Oxygen's a fuel for fire, acetylene starts fire. So in this circumstance, an inspector comes in, they're not in use. This resulted in almost an $8,000 fine. Here's another example where a DNR inspector comes in. He gets free range to the facility, walks around, sees a bunch of spray cans, shakes it up, paint comes out, so obviously a hazardous waste disposal, again, around $8,000. This one is around a compressor, just a little oil drip here, just accumulated over time, because slips and falls are huge risks in our industry. OSHA deemed that the floor is unsafe, and this resulted in a $10,000 fine. In this circumstance, a facility was just expanding. They went, a simple way. We're just going to run some cords through the wall, just kind of keeping things, I guess electrically, obviously not safe, and this resulted in a $13,000 fine. This one is a unique situation. I've actually had people run out and buy new ones after I do this. So this circumstance, an employee brought one in from home. It didn't have a safety shield, and a worker puts it in his private area, and inspector comes in. Even though the owner gave the guy approval, said to put a sign on it, it actually resulted in a $20,000 fine. Here is a really unfortunate one, and sadly happens way too often, but obviously when inflating large tires, if something's not constrained, there was one recently down in Florida that resulted in a fatality and resulted in a $32,000 fine and a tragic accident. This one here, again, this is one about those fire extinguishers, and it was a repeat offense, not having them mounted. This is something where, you think you have everything in place with the fire extinguisher, and, it's serviced on an annual basis, it's mounted correctly, it's accessible, but in fact, you can get the smallest little detail wrong with a yellow arrow down to it, and those can be $3,000 each. So something to keep in mind. So this relates to a emergency exit in an area where there was some vagrancy. There were some homeless people trying to break in, steal some tools, And so the owner just decided, I'm going to shut off this area, keep the people away, keep them out, keep the tools safe. And this, because it was a fire hazard, resulted in a $67,000 fine. This one's close to home for you all, I'm sure, because it's a trucking incident. This one's really, really tragic. It really shows how like everyday process turns into a complete catastrophe. So a shop didn't establish a confined space training program. A technician entered a tank for an annual inspection. He inhaled bleach, chlorine gas in this confined space while he was in there, and later died from the exposure. They just didn't educate their employees on confined space. It was a simple fix, easily could have been preventable, nor did they educate their employees on fall protection or I believe it was respirator fit tests either. So this was massive. This was $326,000. So after learning all this, I'm sure you're a little overwhelmed. And so that's just where GMG comes in. We are your compliance department. We help our employees in 4 different areas. We have in-person expertise come out. We provide training and software, and we help with vendor services and certain packages that we offer. We have coordinators everywhere you see a dot here. And what do those coordinators do? They're the experts. There is not a chemical or a tool that they're not familiar with. They go out, do those on-risk assessments to ensure that those OSHA regulations are being met. They'll do that in-person training. They assist with paperwork, housekeeping, your docu-system, put up signs. They take care of everything for you. Outside of our research teams, this is one I have run into with trucking several times when I've sold some trucking companies, and it's one where a company doesn't know what permits are required. So our team of research experts digs in, finds out what's needed, and sometimes these can be up to 200 pages long. We're kind of going through things. And then we also have our permit team. So we actually go through the application process, submit your information, have it ready to go. All you do is pay, and we take care of all that. We also provide other trainings, so heat-related illness, anything electric vehicle, anything monthly safety updates, tire inflation. There's a number of different trainings that we'd offer, and these are in person or online. So looking to our tools and software, so after the coordinators come out, they're going to review some areas of concern. So basically, and I'm going to flip to this next page to give you a better overview of what that upper screen looked like. They're going to give you an assessment score, so it's going to show where you landed on a score from 1 to 100. And if you're in the dark green, you're doing a great job. It's going to show you how many employees have completed the trainings, where things fall in comparison to previous visits or upcoming, what you look like compared to the past. And then also it's going to show you by risk area. So maybe that there's fire safety not being addressed. Maybe there's a certain department. It's going to break that down for you. And then the action plan number 5 here, that is going to be your 5 top things that you would need to have fixed. Maybe somebody needs a respirator fit test, secondary labels. There's just a number of things where these are the ones that need addressed sooner than later. It's also going to have a breakdown of your employees with certifications that they need or coming up. It's going to have stored documents, those stored permits, and then it also houses your SDS sheets. So when we come in, we take full inventory of everything that you have in your shop. We have them on hand in our system already, and then we just put a login up. So we put up signs within your shop, so if the employees need to access them, they can just sign in on their phone. There is a vendor service option as well. It helps, for some locations that have many locations that maybe need a national account manager that really digs in deeper. And then obviously with vendor sourcing, sometimes people just wear too many hats and they don't want to deal with getting bids or scheduling, fire extinguishers being serviced, and we can take that off your back as well. So the services we offer, there's 3 of them. I'm going to be kind of brief on these ones, but because the next page kind of explains it as well. Our standard includes those written programs, the support, the training. It also has 1 visit per year. The Advantage, 4 visits, includes all that permitting and research that we assist with. And then Premier, this one also includes that vendor management that I mentioned and a dedicated national account manager. Pricing wise, you'd be surprised because if you think about it, sometimes this price might seem high. However, just doing permitting, you can look at $2,000 per facility, or just to do fit testing, you could be looking at $500 per facility. So it depends on what you guys currently have set up. It could be a situation where, again, it happens, 6 months down the road, you say, oh, I remember Jennifer. I'm going to call her. She's going to help me get rid of this OSHA citation. But regardless, this is just to give you an idea of where our pricing falls. And there is a $200 enrollment. Here is my contact info. I'm happy to give those templates to anybody. That included the employee rights as well as the company rights for the inspection. I'll be reaching out to get those in you guys' hands. And at this point, I'm just going to open it up for some questions.